Unabated. That's the new word, unabated. That's kind of too big a word. That's like mayonnaise. I'm assuming that's the biggest word I know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on into Cover 2 College Football Player Props, powered by Unabated with our own, the realist, Chris Kay. I'm Tom Viola. Thank you so much for being here with us on another fine, fantastic Friday morning before our Unabated triple header here. Chris, it's you and me. Then it's me and Derek Carty doing NFL props at the top of the next hour here. And then after we wrap up, Unabated NBA members, get ready for Set the Screen with Justin Fan, John Rodaby, and Stephen Byron Keach, because we have another jam-packed slate there. So get your piss jugs ready for the NBA slate tonight as well. Chris, we're feeling good. It's another great Friday here. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good. Looking forward to the weekend for multiple reasons, real and fantasy, right? Got some fun games to watch tonight. I always like watching. I've grown to really like to watch UNLV, and San Jose State was fun to watch last weekend when they played Boise. So looking forward to some football. Big noon Saturday. You know, there's a lot of good action here, and best part about it is we have a short week. I have a short week next week, so if my only date, like real job I got to do is some college football stuff, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, count me in. It's the best. Next week is up there with best slates of the entire season. You just get so much good stuff. Thursday for NFL, Friday, and Saturday. It's just so good all the way around.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of great fun here, and we are excited to be along for the ride with everybody else. But Chris, I think that we should jump right into it here. Let's start talking about game number 1. Where are we headed, my friend?
Let's take a look at this Purdue-Michigan State game. So Purdue-Michigan State. Purdue is quite awful. I have some choice words for how much I've watched them this season, unfortunately. But the one I want to start with, Hudson Card here, I wouldn't necessarily touch this edge. I think there is a potential that he gets pulled. We have projected the full game, but he's been banged up. The backup's been kind of average to bad. So I don't think we do anything with the passing yards, but I do think the rushing yards pose an interesting line or two here. Specifically, Devin Maccabee. So little appetizer to get started, about a 6% edge on here on the books. And the thing is, Purdue plays slow and they love to run the football. They're going to lose 35-0, but damn it, they're going to run it so much. And it's appalling how much they run it. But Maccabee's the running back 1. He's averaging over 5 yards per carry. He's probably going to land between 11 and 14 carries. The thing is, like I said, they're going to run it so much. They have had a lot of success on the ground in the most random of games. They ran for over 200 against Oregon, Illinois, Oregon State, and then Indiana State. That's not a surprise. So they've run over 200 yards against real opponents. So Michigan State's not very good. But they're 2 touchdown favorites. But I'm not worried about the game script because, like I said, they don't care. They just want to establish the run and then see what happens. So I think Maccabee is a good way to get started. That's the earlier of the 2 games we'll talk about tonight. And so I think Maccabee is a good way to get going with it.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at some of the other guys that we have on the slate here, like that is the smallest edge that we have in the simulation here. What do you think about Kayron Lynch-Adams first, and then we'll talk a little bit about these other guys with the prize picks.
Yeah, so Lynch-Adams and Carter, but this is a tough one. We feel really good about Michigan State except for the running back situation. We don't quite know who the running back 1 is. They've kind of gone back and forth. Seems a little bit of hot hand. Seems a little bit of matchup like, okay, well, we need kind of the speedier back like a Lynch-Adams. Let's go with him. Or we need maybe the wrecking ball north-south type with Nate Carter. Let's go a heavier him. If you want to click the little edit there button to see what we got in terms of carries, we've pretty much projected him identical amount of usage. If you had to, gun to my head, what would I do? I'd put Nate Carter as more usage. Mm-hmm. This feels like a game they're going to get ahead, get in control, and then just try to own the rock type of thing. So this Nate Carter line to me at 42.5 or 41.5, if you play a DFS site, like that's insane. I'm not saying just absolutely hammer it with your mortgage, but like it's Purdue. They're awful. And even if he is the running back 2, that's still going to be 10 to 12 carries against one of the worst defenses in the Big Ten. So I was shocked to see these 2 lines. Even Lynch-Adams is a solid line at 49.5. I mean, clearly the books think that he's the running back one. That could be the case, but we still have him over 63 yards. So I think both of these guys are really good options tonight as well.
Damn, I mean, we could be looking at this going, hey, just take the running backs, all three of them over. What's the weather situation even going to be like?
I don't think it's gonna be Cleveland. I think there's no weather to be scared about here.
Mhm.
Michigan State, they've struggled. They want to win some games. This is one they should win. I just don't know how they would just hammer the passing game with Aiden Giles. Like, that's just not a recipe for success. I think they get ahead, they stay ahead, and they use the ground game to do it. So, even if we're wrong on the usage, I still feel good about both of these. It is shocking that these lines are in the 40s.
Yeah. Marwell's curious here. Love is at 27.5 at -103. He wants to know if this is worth it over at Caesars. I mean, he's kind of the fourth running back that I'm picking here, but what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think I'd rather Maccabee even at the higher number and the lower edge. Technically, the thing is that we know for sure what Maccabee is going to get. Right? There's a floor to his usage, which is that like 11, 12, 13 carries. When you look at Reggie Love, last game he fell behind and did not get his typical usage. Does that happen again? Does he go back to a couple weeks ago where he was almost identical to Maccabee? Less questions with Maccabee, so I'd prefer Maccabee over Love. I don't hate Love by any means. I mean, 27.5, that's like potentially 2 or 3 runs. Michigan State's run defense, good, not great. They've been beaten up a couple times by different teams. So it's not like they're one of the best in the country. I'm not necessarily concerned about that. And like I said, game script doesn't matter, but I think I would prefer Maccabee over Love.
That Nate Carter line already jumped up to 46.5 right as I was going to bed at FanDuel there.
Yeah, I think for that one, I'm trying to think of where I would probably stop. I'd probably stop around 50, 52.5, something like that, where if you only do get 10 carries, it's a little bit, tighter of a window there. But, I think up to 50, 52 is probably fine still, even though our edge is still going to show pretty significant.
Yeah. And by the way, if you guys caught that, we're not live streaming on Twitter today, only on YouTube, trying to get more people, over here to the channel. So first off, remember, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. But it also means we can finally pull up comments. For everybody. We're going to be able to do that the rest of the way out here. Joey asking if I'm jacked up on Ghost today. No, I just finished my green tea for the morning.
Oh, gosh.
Apparently more caffeine than coffee, but it doesn't make me jittery and just kind of like wakes me up and keeps me from
Did you survive last Friday, by the way?
I barely survived last Friday. Although Tuesday night, I'm at soccer and like I had the gym. It was our championship game. I'm at the gym before soccer, as I always do, and I normally pop like a C4 or something before that gym session so that, I'm riding that caffeine wave in. And this was the first time I'm in goal, and they had the heater on for the first time this season. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, and I go to one of my buddies, and I'm just like, hey, do you smell something burning, or am I having a stroke?
Oh, no.
Thank God. He was like, I smell it too. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Oh, God. Not good when you have to question the stroke.
Yes.
You're not quite that old, Tom.
Maybe I should stop with the massive caffeine. Matt saying, remember when Purdue got mega steamed against Notre Dame? Good times.
They did. But I mean, if that's a thought of like, hey, are we worried about getting rolled by Notre Dame? I don't think that's going to happen. I remember it vividly because my in-laws, Notre Dame graduate. And so I had to watch the entire game in single box, not even I couldn't even get quad box.
Oh,
he
man.
kept making me go, hey, I think they're back from commercial. And I'm like, yes.
Oh.
So I had to flip it. So yeah, I watched the entirety of that one.
That's absolutely brutal. Michael Zimmerman grabbed a 23.5 on Love. So that's a good line right there.
Yeah.
That is absolutely brutal. My college roommate was a Texans fan. And like, I remember there was one week they were playing somebody and they were just getting like the crap beat out of them. And I'm just like, can we maybe like add another game on picture in picture or something here, man? And then this year, watching the Jets a couple weeks ago, he was finally like, watching the Jets Texans game, he was like, I understand now. I get it now. I get this is how you felt that day.
Yeah, there's a certain level of like you just got to get away, and I don't need to see 35-7. Like, let's just move on. This is over. But
Joey Ramick also suggesting something here to help out Surfer. No CFB props in New York does suck. It does indeed. Check out the rest of the comments. There might be something that can help you there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyway, let's move on to the next. Do we want to hit passing yards on this game, or do we want to move over to UNLV San Jose State?
Let's go to receiving yards real quick, and then we can hit the Mountain West Conference. Looking at this one, I tell you, man, these sites are putting up, or books are putting up so many lines that are just like, look at this Reggie Love line, 0.5 receiving yards. Like, really? Like, we're really doing this, Prize Picks?
Yeah.
I would avoid that. Please avoid the 6.5 on K'Ron Lynch Adams. Like, these are just not worth it. 9.5 on Nate Carter, just not worth it. Yeah. I think, Jerron Tibbs, he's a receiver 2/3 for them. And that means he's the third or fourth target in the offense, because Max Clare is their top target. He's their tight end. So I think Jerron Tibbs is an under 20.5, a little bit better of a realistic line. Still volatile, but I think that's good. Like I said, Card and their backup Brown have struggled, and they just love to run the ball and milk the clock till 1 second. And then if we look at the bottom here, is there anything lower than Nick Marsh? Nope, nothing there. So, I think really you want to look at that Jerron Tibbs. You could, Max Clare, even if you think he is their top guy, which he is, like, I think the 7% edge is pretty true. You could throw a little bit on that if you think that passing game struggles, which it could. And but I think there's a little bit of there.
Chris Moxley pointing out Michigan State secondary down 2 to 3 starters here.
Doesn't matter when you're running it 35 times a game, trying to own the clock, but not helpful. Not helpful. But if there's a quarterback that I'm not worried about taking advantage of a bad secondary, it's Hudson Card, unfortunately. And I'm a Purdue fan in the offseason, which is a bummer. Yeah. So anyways, let's move on from this one, because it's giving me PTSD. UNLV and San Jose State. So this one is tricky on the timing there. Let's look at rushing yards. We might have to manually input these ones.
Yeah, I'm going to have to manually input it here, because these reset when I did the whole thing. Let's see. We don't want him. We want them. There we go. Okay. Floyd Chalk, we have projected at 14.1 rushes for 69. Nice. 0.22526 yards. We are getting granular with it here today, Chris. You pulled out the ruler for these projections. Are we going down to the millimeters, sir?
And then Jane Thomas is going too. These guys are interesting. They're different in their roles in the offense, but their offenses are also different. So it's an impact here. So Jane Thomas to start, running back by committee, and their quarterback runs a good bit as well. So Hajj Malik Williams probably will lead the team in rushing today. We see the line is actually higher for him on this slate, or on this game. So we like the under here. They're introducing so many different running backs, Kylan James, Greg Burrell. So like they're using 2, 3, 4 running backs, and Hajj Malik Williams is a runner by nature himself. So, anytime we see a committee and the number in the 60s, that's a good under for me. So I like that one there. And then on the reverse side of things, San Jose State loves to throw the football. I mean, we're talking like 65, maybe 70% of the time throwing it.
Jesus.
But Floyd Chalk is going to get 55 to 60% of the carries of the work, right? So you see a heavy passing team, and he still has more rushing attempts projected than Jaden Thomas at 14.1. So we like the over there. He's going to get, if they run it 20 times, he's going to get 12, 13, 14 of those carries. I would say they're probably going to be between 20 and 25 carries, which puts them at a good number. And when you're getting it at 50.5, that's helpful. And there's also, if there is weather, this one is apparently potentially going to have some bad weather, just, how things change and how impactful winds and rain can be. But pushes maybe San Jose State towards running maybe a little bit more than usual.
This game's in San Jose?
Looks
this
like
game's in San Jose.
Are you? I don't know West Coast weather good enough. Are they wrong? Is the weather guy typically right in when it comes to their weather?
That's a good question. I mean, this is my home. This is my hometown.
It's raining. That's what it says is basically 99% rain at 3, 6, and then 90% at 9 p.m. Eastern. So Maybe a little bit rain before slick field. We'll see. Maybe it pushes and it gets more of the middle. I like it regardless. Our stuff doesn't. The way we handle weather is we let Vegas do the work. Whatever the books do the work. Whatever the line is for the game, that's what we're working our model off of. So if they lower the line because of weather, then that's how it's impacted with our stuff, and that's how we've always done it. So that's an internal debate and fight we've had for 5 or 10 years, but that's another day for another story for another day.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm getting us the boots on the ground. I just texted a couple of my friends back home. We'll find out exactly what the weather is looking like over there today.
Yeah.
And so we'll check that out. But like typically we don't get bad rain and wind there. Like we don't really get a lot of those storms. That being said, there's a massive storm that's going to be rolling through the Lake Tahoe area. And so this is probably that
the beginning
up. Yeah, this is that starting its migration up that way. So we will see what happens there. As Matt asked, chalk efficiency seems high there against a solid UNLV, allowing 3.5 yards per carry.
So, that can be a little tricky, right? Like, who did they do it against? Mountain West Conference can be a little bit up and down. They were great against Hawaii, great against San Diego State. But against
they're terrible against LaQuinn Allen.
Yes, over 4 yards a carry against Syracuse, over 5.5 yards against Kansas, over 4.5 against Ashton GT. Obviously, ultimately 14 carries. What is that? 4.5 yards per carry, something like that. So it's not a huge uptick, maybe closer to 5, but I mean,
4.5 yards per carry, only allowing 4.5 yards per carry to Ashton GT. That's good.
That's strong.
Yeah.
There's also other levels to it, right? Like the team is where there are injuries. San Diego State against UNLV weeks and weeks ago, we talked about that game. Like all they did was key on GT, and the passing game went off. So maybe they keyed on the running game and some of these other ones, like that GT game as well. So it's hard to say one for one. You don't have to bet it. We like the number based on the model, and we'll roll with it.
Yeah. I also just like. The chalk one, the chalk one is good, especially at that 50.5 number. Watch out, and obviously it drops off precipitously as you get up to the 56, 58s. I love the Jaden Thomas though, because there are just too many mouths to feed in that offense.
They just use a lot, and their quarterback is just so great at running. So it's hard to not like a running back by committee member there.
Exactly. All right, let's head to the passing game here. We've only got one guy that we really want to hit on, Trayshawn Hurry. What are we looking at here? Because we're looking clearly at the under.
Yeah, so he's their third receiver. We talked about how much they like to throw it, right? He's only at 10% of usage for the offense, which actually means like 4 targets per game. But 40.5, 42.5 in some of these places is still a high enough number where we really like the under there. If he gets 4 targets, he needs over 10 yards per target to hit that number, which is above what he's seen all season. So third option in that offense, Nick Nash he might have the biggest and highest numbers in, college football for receivers. Justin Lockhart's coming off a huge game, and Jacob Stewart, their tight end, is relevant, but not like from a betting perspective, just as he actually can catch a football type perspective. So when you're that third receiver, it takes a ton of targets, which would be a little bit atypical for him in this offense.
Especially given the weather situation and everything with, game script here. We like that. Getting some weather reports in for us. Rainy, overcast, so no news here yet, but I just asked about the wind. Going to get a response for that in just a second. As Natish also points out, these Cambion lines are usually a little bit stale, so watch out for that with chalk there. I am getting it is breezy, but clients who just came down from the hills up Highway 17 said there's sounds like over the Santa Cruz foothills right now there's like an actual hurricane going on, so it could get windy later on today.
Interesting. Yeah. I heard they don't call hurricanes out west, they call them cyclones, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's not an actual cyclone or a hurricane going on, but it is
near levels.
Yeah. Although, yes, Pacific is cyclones, Atlantic is hurricanes.
I had no idea until earlier today. How weird is that?
That is quite wild. That's just something that you learned earlier today, and it already comes up again.
There we go. Here we go. I'm looking knowledgeable. Let's go from one passing attack that's good to an awful passing attack, which is Iowa. Yes, we're gonna go back to bread and butter, which is Iowa props. No quarterback lists in here because there's a little bit of a rumor going around that Cade McNamara, while healthy, has said deuces and is quitting the team. Jeez. So we're looking at with Brendan Sullivan, who got injured in that UCLA game a couple weeks back. We're looking at Jackson Stratton, a guy with less than 30 career attempts to play at quarterback. So let's look at receiving yards to start. Specifically, one receiver, Jacob Gill, pops to me. Only available on DFS sites, it looks like. But if it does pop up, this is like a really good one. I think they're not going to throw it much. They're going to try to ground and pound, control the football. And Jackson Stratton's not a passer. Right? He's really not even a Power 4 quarterback. He's just a guy that's been on the team and then he couldn't break the squad at Colorado State. He transferred over. Hasn't done much, and then so we're seeing him play, which means we should see some unders on Jacob Gill if we do get a line.
We've got 38.5 at -120 on Fliff for Gill. Thank you, Risque Barber. And Nitish saying weather is overrated, as proven from yesterday's game. Wet is overrated. Wind is not overrated.
Yeah,
that is my personal belief, at least.
Yeah, well, the thing was everything was low scoring until the end, like the fourth quarter, right? So something happened.
The Jameis Winston snow game.
I do think if you go to rushing yards here, there is a little bit of there's a small edge that I think if you wanted to take it and get something at the Newt slate, I think this Caleb Johnson over, right at that 5% marker that we like to stay at. 23.5 touches.
121 yards, Chris.
You don't see that often. He's a top 6 or 8 running back in the country in yards per game. He wasn't very good against UCLA a couple weeks back, but they have the bye week, potentially fresher. This is a guy that I think they could just say, hey, you know what? Stratton's at quarterback. Yeah, we need you to go for 25 to 30 carries. And if he were to get something like that, I mean, he would breeze over it. Maryland's defense is probably worse against the pass, but with Stratton at quarterback, that's not really relevant. The run game defensively is fine for them, but nothing exceptional. So Johnson over here makes a lot of sense if you want some noon action.
I'm trying desperately to get this in before the rest of our audience does.
Maryland's offense, I'll kill some time for you here for a second. I think Maryland's offense is going to struggle against Iowa as well. It's one of those situations where it's like backup quarterback. Our defense can handle the game. Let's just ground and pound, run the football, control the game, and not make mistakes. The only way Iowa loses is if they make Stratton throw enough and Maryland forces turnovers. So I think they're motivated to not throw the football in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, again, they potentially have no quarterback here. That's kind of a big problem.
Even if it was Cade McNamara, I would still. I mean, Cade McNamara is not any good, so it's not even like it's not even like you're worried that somehow the heavy rumors are wrong. But I think if we want to knock out a quick one, we could look at West Virginia. So
country roads.
We would go to the receiving yards here. Rushing yards, I didn't even mess with it. They're just kind of a combination of committee and Garrett Greenback. He ran 22 times. It was awesome. But I do like the Cole Taylor under if it's available on Fliff. Hudson Clement over, small unit potentially there to like. But there we go. Look at that. And so I do think, Cole Taylor is a tight end. He's their top target, but he's not really that big play guy. He's a tight end, right? So 4 to 5 targets. He's probably going to catch almost all of them, essentially, right? 3.5 receptions. So pretty reliable, but 47.5 yards is a pretty big number for a tight end.
Yeah. For any tight end in college, really, if you're not from Iowa, right?
So, if you're not from Iowa, Bowling Green, or Syracuse, you pretty much are in trouble for tight ends.
Though, to be fair, Rondé Gadsden's really just a receiver.
That he's in line. Yeah, he's really not really one of those guys.
Yeah, I wonder where he plays in the pros. All right. Joey was at the Browns game last. That's awesome.
Joey, were you one of the guys with the no shirts on, hammering Miller Lights? Do you see those guys?
Yeah, that was amazing.
You got to be some sort of crazy to go to a Browns game on a Thursday night, snowing, 2-8, shirt off. I'm not sure I could ever. I think my wife would leave me if I ever was like, yeah, I'm going to go do this.
You got to be a special type of dog in you. You got to have a special type of dog in you to do that.
They make them different up north though. Joey definitely has more dog in him than at least me. You know, as a Southern guy here, he's got way more dog in him than me. But
yeah.
Let's look at
Hang on, we got a question from Nitish. What about under 3.5 receptions plus 120 for Taylor?
I think plus 120 makes it make sense. That's gonna be tight, but I think plus 120, you could throw a little bit on it. It would make sense. You know, I wouldn't. You know, we have him right at the 3.5 line, so that's gonna be a little bit tight. But plus money, you could definitely have worse bets.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want to head next, my friend?
So last week we did Baylor. We're not doing Baylor, but last week we did Baylor. It said Sawyer Robertson, find a ladder and just bet it up to the top, right? To 325. He ended at 329. So I'm going to try it again. Okay.
Ooh.
I haven't even told you.
Yeah, we We climbed the ladder.
We did.
Week.
I think there were a couple of subs in the Alpha chat that had said that they hit it. So I want to look at USC and we're going to obviously go to passing yards. We're going to look at Jaden Maeva. So he's at 293.1 yards. And you need completions, right? Let's see here. We have a 24.84 completions. 28.84. Yeah, there we go. This is a pretty big over. Honestly, I asked my buddy, I was like, am I seeing things wrong? Like, why would this be 239.5? So a little backstory. Maeva was the quarterback, I think, at UNLV or New Mexico. I was getting mixed up. At least I did before this year. And played well, transfers to USC, does not get the starting job. Miller Moss has it. They go into the bye week 2 weeks ago and say, hey, Maeva is going to be the guy. And what we see is he threw for 260 yards almost, 25 of 35, 3 touchdowns. Looked very good. Now against Nebraska, who is a little bit of an underrated defense. Now they get UCLA, who's fine. You know, they're not like, you're not going to just walk all over UCLA's defense. Not now. Maybe in like week 3 you could have, but not now. But like 293 feels fairly good. We have him at like 7.5 yards per attempt, 58% of the time throwing the football. They got a bunch of receivers. To me, this is one of those ones where it wouldn't shock me if he threw for over 300. So if you want to find something that's like over 300 or over 325, I think you probably cap it at that 325 number with like Sawyer. But I like the over here. Lots of options, great passing game. The running back's great in the passing game. UCLA's looked better and is scoring well. So I think if you're going to go for a ladder or something fun, this is definitely the guy to do it this weekend.
Yep. FanDuel's got, let's see here. FanDuel's got the ladder at, you can get 275 yards at plus 172, 300 at 290, and 325 at 490. Those definitely just moved because I bet them 2 seconds ago and they were not those prices.
I would say that's good. That's fun. You know, like, I mean, that's a night game too, right? It looks like 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 your time. So what a way to end the night. Maybe that's how you the cherry on top for the night.
Could be fantastic. I got 360 and 630. So
that's great.
Yep. FanDuel moved already, as Daniel Foley saying. We got in quick.
The thing is, this is what I was talking to my buddy about. It was like, well, if this was Miller Moss at quarterback, we would like the over on Miller Moss. And I think Jaden Maeva is a better quarterback than Miller Moss. So why would I not like the over at the 239.5? So just from a straight up over 239.5 perspective, this is one of my favorites of the weekend, because I just don't get it. I just don't know why it's this low. I would think it would need to be more around 255 to not be like shocking. And we're nowhere near it. So I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Tate wants to know, is Hurry under 42.5 receiving yards at minus 120 still worth it?
I think that's almost what we have, right? This seems fairly close.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It's a yard lower and the minus 120, not minus 118. So yeah, I'd say so. I mean, really, you know, how many times do you lose a bet by like 1 yard all the time? It feels like, but you really just remember the bad times, not the good times. I'd probably do it to like 40.5, 39.
I mean, yeah, we're seeing it like right over here with Fanatics. They've got under 40.5 at -125. It's still showing a 16%
Yeah, I
edge.
think it's
Obviously, get a better price, but yeah, you've got some options.
Yeah, it is. I will say it is a hard pill to swallow when you're you're forced maybe because of location or something like that to bet under 40.5 or 39.5 compared to people that can get it at 42 or 43. But
highly relatable.
Very real. Hey, I'm working over here on just underdog and sleeper and prize pick, so it's a tough life we live, but it is what it is.
Colin Sherwin, our own Colin Sherwin, saying, has anyone seen UCLA tackle in the open field? A lot of yak coming from Iava. Heck, could you imagine just they start the first drive on like the 20 and boom, for first strike, 80-yard slant, take it to the house. We just get started right away.
They have the great thing about their receiving group is they have different kind of guys in different roles. They have like your tall, deep threats and Deuce Robinson and Jacoby Lane. You have Zachariah Branch, who's like a poor man's Luther Burden that just runs like his ADOT's probably like 1 yard. Like he runs screens and short slants and things like that. Then you have Mekhi Lemon, who's probably shockingly probably their best receiver. He can do a little bit of everything. I think he had a long, like a 70-yard slant a couple of weeks back, maybe against Maryland for a touchdown. So they have a little bit of everything, which is really good. And Colin makes a great point with the yak. I mean, they have guys that can take advantage of it with some of those already mentioned names.
Yeah. All right. So the USC ladder we have in. Where do we want to head next, Christopher?
Yeah, let's look at Michigan and let's start with the passing yards. This line is much different. This is not a guy that we're projecting for 290.
No. Davis
Warren here at 176.7 for us, sitting around 145.5. This guy he's not the greatest by any means. This is going to be his last
rousing endorsement.
But it's Northwestern, right? Michigan's offense is not going to like kill you on the ground anymore. They're going to have to throw it a little bit. They have Colston Loveland, who we can look at here in a second, is a great target, top 45 overall pick in the NFL draft next year. So they have a little bit of guys to throw to, and Warren loves throwing to Loveland. And ultimately, this line's just too low. I want to say he's hit this a bunch of different times. Northwestern's giving up 7.1 yards per attempt on a season, which is nice to see. Every team Northwestern has faced has thrown for more than 145 yards. So I like it. I think Warren is a good option. This is not one that this doesn't come close to classifying as my favorite bet of the night, but it's a good bet. I like it.
Hey, that's sometimes all that you really need. That not every bet's going to be the best in the world, but if we just keep collecting good bets, we're going to be profitable at the end of the day. As Matt says, AJ Henning revenge game.
It is an AJ Henning revenge game. We hit the over on that one. We got unlucky. Kurtz out of nowhere was healthy. So we got a little bit lucky on that one. But I think Northwestern will put up enough to make it really competitive enough of a game where they push it a little bit. If you want to go to receiving yards, I think, like I already mentioned, Loveland should be a decent edge. I think his number is somewhere around 59.5. Yes. Yeah, 59.5. So if it's available, FanDuel's it's a little bit tighter at 63.5, but he is their main guy. Over 33% of targets go his way. So really like that one. Samaj Morgan, this is why I tell people get in the CFB Discord alpha chat, because yesterday, some lines you're like, is this real? Like I see it on the prop screen and I'm like, is this actually a real line? Like, or is it stale or just like a naming mismatch? We don't typically talk receptions, but Samaj Morgan, who is a 15% target share guy, he had a over 1.5 receptions at plus 160, and you can even get it on it plus 135. It looks like at ESPN Bet. So, and I think they were betting it on Fliff as well. So, Alpha Chat was taking advantage of plus 160 is insane. I mean, we like the over 8.5 receiving yards, 100%. Yeah. But it's quite possible he ends like 3 catches for 2 yards. The reason why I say that is because they just do a bunch of short stuff, speed sweep, like jet pass type stuff, bubble screens. I mean, his ADOT's going to be extremely low, high percentage type passes for Davis Warren to complete to him. He's their punt returner. He's very speedy and athletic and agile. So they're trying to get him in space and like kind of like an extension of the run game. So if you can get it over 1.5 on the receptions, like I think that's a better bet than the over 8.5, which is funny to think about. But I think both of them are great.
We are moving numbers, by the way. That Warren passing yards is already up to 154.
Now it's okay. So that's probably where I would stop. But I think up to 154 is fine. I wouldn't be worried if you bet it at 152 or something like that. But yeah, that's funny. Someone's going to be tweeting, "Hey, who moved the David? Like, what bunch of sickos moved the Davis Warren line this afternoon?" And we're proud of that.
Yeah, we get to tweet out the clip and be like, "It was us. We are those sickos."
We are those sickos. A few more teams here to look at. We didn't do Arkansas. Well, we did Arkansas. Let's look at Arkansas here.
We did.
we did Arkansas. Fairly positive. I can give you the lines of that.
Yeah.
So this one, at 3.5%, whatever. If you want to watch the game and have some juice on it, I think Taylor Green over there makes sense. We've kind of docked them. They're something like 22 or 23 point favorites, so we don't have them for the full amount of passing usage, which is typical for what we do. So don't be alarmed. So theoretically, if this game stays tight, you can see a higher number there. Let's go to the receiving yards. He has a receiver one that's just incredible. He gets tons and tons of volume. Andrew Armstrong is their guy that probably around 31 to 33% of targets go his way. You're looking at like 10 to 12 a game, basically. So over 74.5 doesn't bother me. That's a big number. But against Louisiana Tech, he's going to have an advantage, and he gets the volume to go with it. If we want to look at rushing yards, we might have a Jaquindon Jackson over. And we do. So yeah, a little bit here. So people might be a little gun shy on this one. Last week we liked the over. He was kind of slow to be rotated into the lineup against Texas, but once he got put in, he looked good. It almost just was like he ran out of time. That's what it felt like. But good matchup for him. Louisiana Tech's a good G5 defense, but you have to think Arkansas, who is built on running the football and like giant offensive linemen, has an advantage on their defensive line, even if they are a good G5 defense. So I like the over there as well. These are 3 plays I think you could certainly bet. Not ones you want to hammer, not ones that you already spend the winnings on dinner tonight. But I think all 3 of them are very viable and good bets against the Louisiana Tech team that they should have the advantage over.
All right, yeah. I mean, they really should definitely have an advantage over a team like Louisiana Tech.
You'd hope so.
Yes.
I mean, Sam Pittman's gonna be fired if they were to lose to Louisiana Tech. He might not make it out of the stadium. I mean, he's on his last leg there anyway. So I think he might be in trouble if they barely win or lose.
All right. Do we have any more that we want to hit, or are we just opening the floor to questions?
I mean, we can definitely take questions. We have a couple more teams. But
let's talk the teams. People can throw in their questions. Like, please do throw your questions in the chat. You guys are what makes this show go. But Chris, let us continue on our journey.
Let's do it. So we're gonna go with a passing prop here. We're gonna go under with this Iowa State Rocco Becht. So Becht has been fairly solid this season. He's had his games of strong performances. He's run it a little bit more than I thought he would this year. But Utah's defense has been pretty strong against the pass. They've held 5 teams under 200 yards passing. This is not the typical Utah team from years past, but they play the pass decently. And Iowa State, while they do have 2 really good receivers, this 259.5 to me is just a little bit too high. You see the big difference there at the FanDuel at 242.5, still a good edge to bet. But passing props, you got to mix in some unders. And I think if you're looking for an under in the pass game, Iowa State on the road at night, I think that's a good bet to take.
Rocco Becht is a name that has absolutely zero aura.
He's in the wrong sport. It feels like he should be like a boxer.
Yes, that's a boxing name right there.
That's a boxing name. He's interestingly enough, I mean, he came to fruition last year because Hunter Deckers had that gambling scandal. So Hunter Deckers was the quarterback that Iowa and Iowa State had that weird betting scandal, and then they got suspended, and Rocco Becht came in as a redshirt freshman and played pretty well. So he's definitely a good enough quarterback. He'll be drafted at some point in his future, but too high of a line. I mean, we saw Maeve at like mid 230s, and I think Maeve is a better quarterback. So why wouldn't I feel bad about going under on a Beck with a higher line?
Mm-hmm. Sicko mode. Matt wants to know Hudson Card over rush yards.
Oh God! So
Montclair State is not at a sack since week 3.
Yeah. So oh my God, I can't believe we're discussing this. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yes, it is actually makes sense. I've seen it move from like 3.5 to 4.5, depending on the spot. The big thing here is Matt's great call out. 1 sack in the last like 6 weeks or 7 weeks, something like that. It hasn't had one since week 3.
Defensive line for this team?
Potentially. So the thing is, right? Like the only concern would be, hey, did they pull him?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to pull him early enough where I would be concerned about it. So I do like it. If you have this is volatile, and if you do have the dog in you to withstand a 3.5 rushing yard number, 4.5 rushing yard number, I think that's fine. They do some design runs with him. They did one. I saw one specifically last. I keep watching Purdue games for some reason. Mm-hmm. They do run design runs with him, so you do have a chance to get a 10, 12-yard run. I think I even heard it on one of my buddies did a podcast, and the host had talked about, I think he's had a 10-yard rush in 5 games this season, like 5 of 8 games. So he is a little bit of a runner. So I don't hate that at all. I just am baffled. I love you guys for mentioning that prop.
We've got a bunch of questions here, but a lot of them are involving Rocco Becht, so we're going to stick with him first. Becht, 249.5 minus 120 on Fliff, Fairhaven, New Jersey. What up? Shout out. I'm GSP 151. GP36 says Becht under 34.5 pass attempts worth a bet. Seems like it given the 16.35 completion seen on the screen here.
Probably. I can take a look.
That we don't really map out.
If you're in the Discord alpha chat, all they do is want the most random of options, like attempts.
I mean, these aren't random options. It's just we don't have a simulator for this one.
No, we don't. No.
Matish is also questioning Becht under 20.5 completions. ESPN Bet loves that. Yeah, we love that edge on ESPN Bet there.
We have him at 35 point. No, that's rushing attempts. Where's the passing targets here? 29 passing attempts.
So yeah, that under 34
yes,
looking pretty worth a bet.
I would actually argue, now that I've heard it and I've poo-pooed on it, I think I actually like under 35.5 passing attempts more than the yardage.
Yeah, I'm very mad that I can't bet these because I'm in Las Vegas and we just don't have them. But ESPN, I can't go to Arizona tonight and bet them because Arizona doesn't have college football player props.
That's not a great situation for you. But I think you have multiple ways to do it. And let me ask you, Tom, as someone that obviously bets, I can't, I'm not spreading my Rocco Becht bets around on Underdog. Do you have a preference of how you like to bet, like yards, completions, and attempts? Like, do you just take one unit and like break it into a third, or do you bet 3 units? Do you just take one over the other? What's your process on that?
I'll usually, Derek Carty and I talk about this on the NFL show a lot. I'll usually go passing completions first and then attempts when it comes to the edges and stuff, because obviously we don't have attempts on the screen. Passing yards is a lot noisier of a stat. I'm looking for a lot higher of an edge to make me take passing yards, whereas pass completions and attempts, it's more game script based. Stuff like that's more stable, and so I'm looking to take those before other things. Same thing applies to rushing attempts versus rushing yards. Rushing
receptions
yards
too, right?
Receptions a little bit, but it's less so. It's a little less noisy. Rushing yards is a really noisy stat, whereas rushing attempts is a lot more stable.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm. The reason why this came up is because last weekend people were hammering Lenore Sellers unders, and they did it in like a variance of ways, and then he just went absolutely nuclear, which is a bummer. But just was curious if you had a take on how you like to personally bet it.
Yeah, that's what I do. GP36 agreeing with me here. Attempts, completions, receptions is best. Don't have to deal with tackling variance. Exactly. That's what we're looking for. Like if we're going to bet on things to or not to happen, we can reduce a lot of the variance by taking those kind of stats. And Natish pointing out that Fliff has props. Yeah, I'm setting up my Fliff account this weekend when I get to California.
There we go. I downloaded Fliff, and then
I've just never used a VPN before. Like I've never used all that stuff, and so like I haven't like I'll eventually get started on that, but I'm just going to start out by playing it in California first.
Yeah, it gave me a weird like can't deposit thing, and then it let me actually deposit $20, and I was like, like I just don't have to deal with it come, tax time or anything like that. Like, am I really going to report this? Am I going to worry about this? So I just passed on it. But
You should do what I do.
What's that?
Commit tax fraud.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
We're joking. Satire.
Let's look at Florida real quick, and then we can hit some more. So if people have questions, Florida is really kind of the last team here. So let's go to the passing yards here. Another passing under that we like is Lagway. Numbers at 221.5. He is banged up. It is lower body, so it's not necessarily going to impact his passing game as much, but he is a little bit banged up. It's a pretty high enough number with playing against Ole Miss, who I believe was coming off the bye week, so they're fresh. Their defensive players a little bit maybe fresher than normal, but yeah, I think the under here makes a lot of sense. They're kind of slowing games down a little bit. They have multiple running backs they're utilizing. So yeah, I think against Ole Miss, that's a tougher matchup than you'd probably think off the cuff. Off the cuff, you think Ole Miss, you think offense, but their defense. They played great against Georgia. Albeit they had rain and bad weather, but they've looked good.
Yeah, they have certainly looked pretty good so far this season, and Florida has looked not great.
Yeah, Florida's improved.
It
doesn't help when you have to go to Aiden Warner or walk-on quarterback. If you're interested in some of like the yard per carry number type stuff, 1.79 yards per carry against Georgia. In the first 5 games, they didn't give up over 2 yards a carry. And then really the high is South Carolina at 3.5 yards per carry. LSU 3.5 yards per carry. So, that's the run game. So scratch that. Great to know though for reference. But 6.5 yards per attempt. The only team that's really beating them up is Arkansas, 13 yards. But Arkansas is kind of that like big play, like boom or bust type offense that can be a little bit tricky. If we want to go to receiving yards, we have one more here to go. To go with Lagway is Chimere DK. Would you have pronounced it that way?
Yes, but only because of the fact that Daryl DK was a U.S. national team player for a little while.
I pronounce it that way because I would be scared to say it the other way.
That's fair, but it's just a dam, a dike. That's a dam. That is a engineering structure.
There we go.
Offensive term.
So yeah, DK here makes a lot of sense to bet under 55.5 is fairly steep of a number, especially when you look at like what we have Lagway at. And so I like the under here. He's really their receiver too, even after Trey Wilson is out for the season. He's been hurt. And we haven't really seen a huge uptick for him. We've kind of seen the uptick go to Elijah Badger as the receiver 1 there. He's been really kind of a big play guy and just more relied upon in the passing game. So, if you like Lagway under, you'd have to think that the DK under kind of like correlates with that, goes with that. And you should look at that one as a way as well to get a little bit of under juice on that passing attack.
Yeah, multiple ways to attack it and reduce some of the variance as well. DK under 3.5 receptions plus 120 at FanDuel. GP36 points out to us.
Same thing as earlier. It's gonna be tight, but it's because it's plus money. I think it makes sense. If there's anything minus, right, I'd probably just avoid. Can't imagine that would be much of an edge. Yeah.
All right. So, Chris, I believe that concludes the props that we have to talk about here. We can throw it to some questions. We have a couple minutes left. We're going to try and get out of here at like 11:55, just because I've got to turn things around for the NFL stream at noon. So stick around with us for the top of the hour when we will be going over player props for week 12 of the NFL season as well. But Chris, I want to open it up to you with this question. Genty or Hunter?
I think you got to go Hunter. What a polarizing topic, by the way. So many G5 and Boise State fans are so salty about Travis Hunter as like the favorite, but I don't know. It's hard.
Doesn't Boise actually have like the 17th ranked strength of schedule this season?
So it's tough, right? Like I think if Travis Hunter wasn't playing college football, like I think JT would be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The problem is he's putting up great receiving numbers. He's going to end with like 85 catches, 900 to 1,000 yards, and like 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then he also plays defense all the time. Like it's like he's not to the level of Shohei Ohtani. But when you think about like how Shohei Ohtani impacts the game offensively, and then once every 5 days he shuts you down and you can't do anything, yourself offensively, it's insane to think about.
Yeah.
It's not just that he plays both ways. It's that he plays both ways very, very well. And the amount of conditioning you have to do that is
in Colorado.
In Colorado, yeah. So like it's insane. I mean, it's just literally insane. It's a bummer for JT because his numbers have been insane himself, but
yeah.
I just don't know how you wouldn't go Hunter.
Yeah, it looks like that's what's going to happen here. Did you see he wants to play at the next level 2 ways? That's not happening.
Dude, he's too small to do that.
Yeah.
You go to the NFL, man, everybody is just an absolute freak. And he's thin. So
it ain't the Big 12.
It's not and it's definitely not the Pac-10 from back in the day either. So
yeah. GP36 has a question for us, and that'll probably do it for the show. Any thoughts on the Army offense?
I don't think we really like anything in the Army offense. I think technically we like the under on, I'll pull it up real quick, but I think we technically like the under on Daly at quarterback. Mm-hmm. But quarterback number is a little bit difficult. They could run him 30 times. Wouldn't surprise me. We have him. So we do like the under on we like the under on Bryson Daly passing yards. And if we looked at rushing yards, we have him projected for somewhere around 80, and his 9 is around 88. That's tough. Notre Dame is a legitimate defense. Let me see if I can pull the actual legitimate numbers here for you real quick. So we have him at 77.4 yards on, where are the carries at? 19 rushing attempts. Yeah. So 77 point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit difficult. 77 yards on 19 carries if you want to try to do some math yourself.
Mm-hmm. Betting under 77 and a half passing yards is true sicko stuff.
I think the passing number is it is, but it's the life we live. We do like the under on Kanye Udo a pretty good bit. We're going to release that on the thing on the release for subscribers, but it's one of those situations where Army has seemed to progress and be a better offense than normal, more legitimate against. So when they face like a real defense like Notre Dame, they feel like they're better situated, but they're going to be mismanned. Their offensive line is going to be thinner, smaller, and Notre Dame has played very, very well since that Northern Illinois loss. So we'll see. I don't know if they'll be able to pull some trickery in the passing game like they have against some of these other teams.
Question. If Indiana loses to Ohio State this week, they finish the season with 1 loss, right?
Yeah.
Like, realistically, that's what's going to happen. How can anyone make the argument that a 1-loss to NIU Notre Dame team should be in over a 1-loss Indiana team to Ohio State?
Well, I think they should both be in, personally. I think what's really funny is that people just hate on that, but like, what has Texas done?
Yeah.
I mean, Texas' best win is like Colorado State or like Arkansas. Like,
they lost to both Bama and Georgia.
Or
have they not played one of them?
I don't think did they play Bama? I don't think they played Bama. That was last year.
Oh yeah.
Or I don't think they played Bama this year. Now you're making me doubt myself. But yeah, so what has really Texas done? And they have 1 loss. So I don't know. I think it's crazy how the SEC has all these teams with 2 losses, but I just have a hard time saying like, you know what you should have done is not lose twice. Like if you're really the best team in the country, you probably don't lose 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
I think the 2-loss argument is tight. The 2-loss argument's more debatable. If you're trying to tell me like a 3-loss Ole Miss team should get in, like, sorry, that's just not. You should just stop. Like that to me, it's just not. It's not like the spirit of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, that is going to do it for us here today. We will of course be back next week on Black Friday to talk about the weekend slate as well. I'll be on location in Lake Tahoe for that one. Going to be a fun time. But Chris, for now, that is going to do it for us. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in through the whole show here. Awesome to have everybody with you. Glad we could get the comments on screen finally. That's going to be the thing moving forward. But in the meantime, best of luck, everybody. I'll see you in just a couple minutes here as we turn around, and it'll be NFL player props for week 12 with Derek Hardy. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. But for now, best of luck this weekend on college football. Let's cash some tickets We'll see you next episode. And let's get that Maeva ladder this weekend, Chris. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
See you guys next time.